They can see you, but they can't hear you.
Okay.
The most
Well,
important.
we still get Joy to introduce our next speaker. And Joy.
Thank you. I'd like you all to meet Robert Kilsby, a Tier 1 SAS combat veteran, born in 1951 in Lee Creek, South Australia. His military career spanned active service as an SAS scout in the Vietnam War, including missions there with the US Navy SEAL, Team 1, Special Operations, will give you goosebumps, Special Intelligence and leadership in Australia's elite forces. How amazing. Known for his larrikin spirit and deep commitment to his mates, Robert embodies resilience, service and reinvention. He founded Veterans in Motorsport, paddled 2,450 kilometres down the river at the age of 70. I thought you were only 60. But to help homeless veterans, and is now a keynote speaker and author, sharing his philosophy, Ultimate Freedom, how to be in charge of yourself. From a teenage gunslinger to a mature age teenager competing in fast Alfa Romeos, Robert invites others to take command of their lives and be in charge of themselves. Join him in rewriting your own story. Give a big welcome to Robert Kilsby.
Well, thanks very much, Joy, for that good introduction. Bit of levity for my grim story to follow, so that's good. Hi, everybody. The story that I've got today is a grim one, but it's uplifting. Who's here heard of the golden hour? Anybody heard that story? Just a couple. The golden hour is related to the 1 hour when battlefield casualties are picked up and being able to take them to a medical facility of good quality. And that they call it the golden hour because if they can get there by then, there's a good chance they'll survive, even if they're severely wounded. So the scoreboard, if you will, for the Vietnam War for Australians, we lost 523 dead and over 3,000 wounded in those few years in Vietnam. You could say, well, that sounds like a small number of dead and a much larger number of wounded. And that's because of the golden hour, because it was a very helicopter heavy operation in Vietnam and they were able to perfect this dust off and get the casualties out, often under fire, and back to the hospital. So I wasn't wounded at that time, 54 years ago, but I had a significant injury. I had a back spasm injury, which I woke up one morning in excruciating pain and sort of paralysed, couldn't move. So it came from, they say, from all the heavy weights. We had the combat loads that our people, we don't get resupplied the SAS so much. So we had to, in the dry season, very heavy loads. Anyway, so there I was, and I was Land Rovered and then choppered down to Vung Tau to the one Australian Field Hospital. And they put me into the battle casualty ward, lying there. So picture this. It's a 40-bed ward, an old building, but a 40-bed ward, very nice and clean. 20 beds on that side and 20 beds on this side, and I'm lying there strapped to a board bed full of painkillers on one about the middle of the ward, looking across to the other 20 beds across the other side. And it was a pretty busy ward. There were a lot of casualties coming in from battles. After surgery, they wheel them in. You think of the old MASH on the TV, it was a bit like that. And when I was there for about 6 days, on my last day, very early in the morning, they wheeled in one of the guys, a young guy called Paul actually, from 2 Infantry Battalion, that had a big firefight the day before in the long high hills. They'd lost a handful of dead and quite a number of injured and wounded. And these guys all came in, but Paul was wheeled in there. He was still out to it from the anaesthetic, and they pushed him into the bed across diagonally, so 7 metres away from me, looking at him like this across off my flat bed. He was, interestingly enough, he'd actually been wounded pretty severely. He was perforated from neck to knee by a tree burst of a rocket-propelled grenade, an RPG, in the trees just above him. So he had all sorts of shrapnel through him and wood splinters and so on from the trees. So they worked on him all night, and when they wheeled him in, he was on his back, and he had all his intestines and everything in his abdomen put in a clear plastic bag sitting on his chest for observation. And so he lay there, and I lay in my bed looking at him for a couple of hours. And then when he was coming out of, and this is the key to the story actually, when he was coming out of anaesthetic, and all the medical orderlies, men and women, the army medical guys, the ward sister, the matron even came down, one of the surgeons came down, and they all gathered around this Paul's bed very closely to him. And as he came out of anaesthetic, they held his hand and spoke to him very, very calmly and clearly and very together. And while I was watching this just across the way, and as he woke up, of course, the first thing he saw was the inside of him sitting in a plastic bag on his chest. The second thing he saw almost simultaneously was all these fantastic, beautiful people, highly skilled, incredibly empathetic and compassionate, bringing him back into the real world. So, as a prologue, and then I left that afternoon. As a prologue, I had the solemn duty to, and I hitchhike on a RAF helicopter gunship back to the task force base, back to my squadron, back to the fight. And I had the solemn duty to take back the personal effects and a blood-stained notebook and map of one of our excellent troop commanders who'd been killed in action while I was lying on my bed there. So I took it back to the squadron for him. So what I'd like you to take away from this is freedom ain't free. For over a century now, young men and women of Australia have been serving, sacrificing, some of them given their all, hundreds of thousands of men, so that we can live like we live. That's one. Number two is please understand and be very, very proud of our medical people in our armed forces. They are brilliant. Army, Navy, Air Force, they're just incredible. And thirdly, is be proud and pay attention and support where you can our armed forces. They'll be very busy in this next 2 years on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. I really found some great stuff in that. I love that golden hour. I thought that was really great to know about.